The wind was cold that evening, blowing dust across the quiet land. The human man, tall, quiet, and living alone, was fixing the broken fence outside his shelter. The world had changed after the galactic war, but his corner of Earth remained. Peaceful. He liked it that way. Far from cities, far from noise, far from trouble. But that evening, trouble came to him. A strange sound echoed through the air. Like something crashing in the distance, he looked up, alert eyes sharp. Then he saw her. Stumbling through the dry grass, her clothes torn, her skin pale blue and bruised, an alien. Woman, clearly injured, dragging her feet like she hadn't eaten in days. He dropped his tool. She looked straight at him, eyes wide and filled with something deeper than fear, something broken. Her lips moved, but no words came out at first. Then, in a whisper so soft the wind almost took it away, she said, "Help. My daughter." And then she collapsed right in front of him. The man rushed forward, catching her before she hit the ground. Her body was thin and cold, shaking like she had been running for days. He looked around, no one else was there. Just silence and sky. He carried her inside, laid her gently on the old couch, and checked for wounds. Her arms had cuts, one side of her face was bruised, and her feet were bleeding. But she held something tightly in her hand. A photo, cracked, torn, and dusty. A small alien girl was smiling in the picture, maybe 6 or 7 years old. With wide eyes and soft features, he gently pulled the photo from her fingers. This was the daughter she cried for. Hours passed before she woke up. The man stayed nearby, boiling water, making soup from what little he had. When her eyes opened, she panicked at first, sitting up too fast, breathing hard. "It's okay," the man said in a calm voice. "You're safe here." She looked around, confused and scared. Then she remembered, and her hand reached for the photo. When she saw it on the table, she grabbed it and held it to her chest. "My daughter." "They took her," she said, tears falling from her eyes. "I begged them, I tried everything. But they said hybrids don't belong to mothers like me." He didn't fully understand yet, but one thing was clear. She had come to him for a reason. No one else would listen. She whispered, "I walked for days. I heard humans were kind." The man nodded slowly. "I don't know what I can do," he said honestly, "but tell me what happened." She looked at him, shaking, lips trembling. "I worked on a mining colony in Sector 4. I kept quiet. I followed rules," she said. "My daughter Sierra was born from a human father. They called her impure, a mistake. But to me, she was everything. One day, men came in black ships. They took children like her, they said. They were rescuing them, giving them a better life, but I knew what they were doing. I heard stories, selling them, experimenting on them. I chased the ship. I tried to fight, but they hit me, broke my arm, threw me down like trash. They told me I should be lucky they didn't take me too." She looked down, her fingers digging into the photo. "I knew I couldn't stay there." She said I had to find someone, anyone who could help. I had nothing left. Except hope. The man stood there, listening in silence. Something in his chest moved like an old engine starting again after years of sleep. He had fought in the war once. He had seen horrors, lost friends, saved strangers. But this was different. This wasn't war. This was a mother's cry. A cry so deep, so full of pain. It made his hand shake without knowing why. He looked at the photo again. The little girl in it reminded him of someone he once knew, a smile full of life, eyes full of trust. The alien woman looked up again. "I know you don't know me," she said, "but if you have any kindness left in your heart, please help me bring her back." He didn't answer right away. He walked to the window, stared out at the stars slowly rising over the hills. Then, in a voice low but firm, he said, "Tell me everything, from the beginning." And in that moment, the first spark lit inside him, a human spark. the kind that refuses to look away when someone is suffering. He didn't know what he'd face, but he knew one thing: he wouldn't let this story end with a mother's tears. Not if he could help it. Not if he could fight for it. Not while she still had hope. The night grew cold, but inside the small shelter, a strange warmth had started to form. The alien woman sat wrapped in a blanket, her eyes still red, her voice quiet. The human man, whose name she didn't even know yet, gave her food. Not much. Just warm broth and dry bread. But to her, it felt like a gift from the stars. She watched him, confused. He had not asked for money or questions or anything. He had only listened. No one had listened before. Not the patrols, not even other aliens. She had walked system after system, begging for help. Everywhere she went, people looked away. Some pitied her. Others laughed, or some said it was her fault. Some told her to forget. Some said nothing at all. But this human. He said, "Tell me everything." So she did. Her voice was slow, and sometimes she stopped to catch her breath. She told him how she used to work in the supply bay of a mining colony, how the father of her child was a human contractor who never returned, how she raised her daughter alone, hiding her from authorities, and how one day the sky turned dark and a black transport ship came without warning. They took hybrid children, all under 10. She tried to fight them, but was beaten and left bleeding on the ground. Others watched, but no one helped. They were too afraid, too tired, or just didn't care. She had lost everything that day except one photo, and the hope that maybe, just maybe, someone in the stars still had a heart. The human man stayed silent for a while after she finished. His jaw was tight, and he stared at the small flame in the corner of the room. Then, finally, he spoke. "What's the name of the group that took her?" Her eyes lit with faint hope. "They called themselves the Relic Syndicate," she whispered. "They take hybrids to sell, experiment, use for illegal training." I heard rumors. He nodded slowly. The Relics Syndicate. He had heard the name before years ago. During the last war, they weren't soldiers. They weren't even part of any proper government. They were worse. They were traffickers, pirates. Slavers in suits. He stood up and pulled open an old storage locker hidden behind a wall panel. The alien woman watched in silence as he pulled out a metal box. Inside were old things from another life: a scanner, a compact blaster, a worn-out pilot badge, and a half-broken drone. "You're a soldier?" she asked, surprised, "Was," he said, checking the blaster. "But I've been quiet for a long time." Then he looked at her and said, "But I think it's time to wake up again." She stood too quickly, her knees shaking. "No, wait, please you. Can't go after them. They'll kill you," she said. "I don't want another person to die because of me." He looked her straight in the eyes. "You didn't ask me to fight," he said. "You only asked me to care. And I do." No. One had said those words to her in years. Her lips trembled again, and she turned away so he wouldn't see her cry. "Where's their base?" he asked. "Already gathering tools. They move often," she replied. "But I have a tracker hidden on Sira's clothes. It only sends one ping a day." She reached into the folds of her coat and handed him a small, cracked device. The screen blinked weakly but showed coordinates. He looked at them and raised an eyebrow. "There near the old wreck fields," he said. She nodded. "Yes, deep inside the ash zone." That place was like a graveyard for old ships' twisted metal, radiation pockets, and hidden traps. A perfect hiding place for the kind of monsters that took children. The human began packing. Old boots, a coat reinforced with heat mesh, a helmet with cracked but working filters. The alien woman stepped forward, unsure. "I want to come," she said. "No," he said simply. "You've already been through too much." "But she's my daughter," she insisted. "I know," he replied gently, "and that's why I'm going." He turned to leave, but then paused at the door. "I'll bring her back," he said. Even if I have to walk through fire. She didn't stop him. She just watched him walk into the night. Her heart was pounding not from fear, but from something else, for the first time in forever. She felt hope. As the door shut behind him, she whispered a quiet prayer, not to any god or star, but to the spirit of humanity, the one she had heard stories about. The stories that said, when humans care, they don't stop. And now, someone was finally coming for her daughter, not because he had to, but because he said yes. When all others turned away, the ash zone was not a place for the living. Old ships floated like bones in space, silent and broken. Metal twisted into strange shapes, shadows moved across dead hulls. Radiation storms came without warning. It was where machines came to die, and where secrets were buried. The human small scout ship entered the zone slowly. Lights dimmed, engines cold, radar silent. He didn't want to be seen, not yet. He followed the signal from the tracker the alien mother had given him. It blinked once every few seconds, guiding him deeper. Far below, hidden under a wrecked battlecruiser, was a ship that didn't belong. Sleek, black, modern, quiet, it had no name, no signal, no identity, but it was the place. The home of the Relic Syndicate's mobile lab. Inside that ship, a little girl sat alone in a small glass room. Her name was Sira. She hugged her knees, silent, eyes tired but still awake. She had not cried in 3 days, not because she wasn't sad, but because there were no tears left in her body. Around her were other rooms, some empty, some full, hybrid children from many species, all taken, all silent. They didn't talk. Talking brought attention, and attention brought pain. The men in white suits didn't use names. They called her Unit 13B. Sometimes Specimen 13. Sometimes just it. She was just a product to them. One of many. A body to study. A code to crack. A thing to test. They gave her injections every morning. Sometimes it hurt so bad she couldn't move. Sometimes it made her heart beat too fast. Sometimes she couldn't sleep for days. They wrote notes, took samples, spoke in numbers she didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Cold, sharp, empty. One day, a woman in a red coat came into the room. She looked important, her eyes like glass. She stared at Sarah for a long time, then smiled, not kindly, but like someone who sees. "Money? This one's DNA is stable," she said. "Good bone structure, strong organ development. Mark her for transport." The guards nodded and left. Sira didn't move. She just stared at the wall. Her little hands gripped the photo hidden in her sleeve, the only thing she had left of her mother. Far above, in the rec field, the human had landed. He wore a full suit, carrying a blaster and a small drone. He moved like a shadow, quiet and careful. He knew how these places worked. One wrong step and the alarms would scream. Through vents and broken passages he made his way. Down the deeper he went, the colder it got. He heard voices, machines humming, children crying softly. Then he saw it, a long hallway with clear glass rooms. Children sat inside, silent and scared. His heart tightened. This wasn't war. This was evil in its purest form. He scanned each room until he found her, the girl. From the photo, her face was thinner now, her eyes darker, but it was her. Sira was sitting quietly, still holding the photo close. She looked up as if sensing something, and for the first time in days. She stood, the human tapped on the glass gently. Sira flinched, stepped back, then stopped. Their eyes met, and for a second, the world paused. He pulled out the photocopy her mother gave him and pressed it to the glass. Her eyes widened, her lips moved. "Mama." The human nodded once, then raised his blaster and aimed at the door lock. A sharp shot, and the glass slid open with a hiss. Sira didn't run. She just stood still, eyes filled with something between fear and hope. He stepped inside, knelt down, and said in a soft voice, "Your mom sent me. I'm here to take you home." But before she could speak, the alarm rang. Red lights flashed, voices shouted, doors slammed shut. The human grabbed Sira gently and pulled her behind him. "Stay close," he said, "and don't let go." Sira nodded and held his hand tightly. He looked down at her one more time. A child. Just a child, yet treated like a product that was going to change now. They ran through the halls as the enemy closed in. But this time, the girl wasn't alone. This time, someone cared, and someone was ready to burn the whole place down. Just to bring her home, the alarms screamed like wild animals. Red lights flashed across the walls. Steel doors slammed shut, one after another, locking down the corridors, but the human didn't stop. He gripped Sira's small hand tightly and kept running. Her feet were bare, but she ran anyway, too scared to look back. Guards with black armor shouted into comms, "Someone's inside. It's a human. It's got one of the test units." Inside the syndicate ship, panic spread fast. They were used to stealing, hiding, selling, but they were not ready for someone to fight back, especially not someone alone, especially not a human. The human knew his path. He had mapped the escape route before he entered, but the place was bigger than expected, with more cameras, more traps, more enemies. He pushed open a maintenance hatch and pulled Sira inside. They crawled through dark vents, their breathing loud in the narrow space. "I'm scared," Sira whispered. "I know," he said gently, "but we're almost there. Just stay with me." Above them, heavy boots pounded the metal floor. Search teams were getting closer. The human tapped his wrist, device it blinked, and showed a countdown. He had planted charges on the upper levels. They wouldn't destroy the ship, but they'd make noise, big noise. Enough to pull attention away from their path. 3, 2, 1 boomed. Floor shook under them, and flames shot through the walls far away. Guards screamed, sprinklers burst, red lights turned white. The whole ship rumbled like it had been struck by a comet. The human kicked open the vent cover and jumped out, pulling Sira with him. Smoke filled the hallways now, just as planned. He moved fast, using the chaos to cover their escape. Every step was loud. Every second counted behind them. Someone shouted, "There! Stop them!" Blaster shots flew past them. The human spun and fired back quick, sharp, clean. 2 guards dropped before they could aim again. He reached the shuttle by only a few meters away, but the door was locked, sealed tight with red lights blinking. "No," he muttered, pressing buttons on his wrist. Come on, come on." More guards were coming from behind. To many this time, he pushed Sira behind a metal crate. "Don't move," he said. "I'll handle this." She looked up at him, tears in her eyes. "Will you die?" she asked. He smiled, even with sweat on his face. "Not today." The human pulled out a small device and threw it down the hallway. It exploded in a burst of light and sound, blinding the guards. He moved fast, fired again, and hit the control panel on the wall. Sparks flew, and the shuttle bay door slid open halfway, just enough. He turned to Sira, grabbed her, and ran. More shots came from behind, one hitting his arm. He grunted, but didn't stop. Blood ran down his sleeve. But he lifted her into the shuttle and hit the start button. The engine roared as bullets hit the hull. A guard jumped into the shuttle door, trying to stop them, but the human grabbed a metal rod and slammed it into the man's helmet. The guard dropped, and the door finally shut. The shuttle took off, shaking from damage, but still flying. Sira sat in the back, holding the photo of her mother again. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But this time, they were different. They were not just sad, they were full of something new. Hope. The human flew through the ash zone, dodging wrecks and radiation spikes. The enemy tried to follow, But his ship had already dropped decoys behind. The tracker signal vanished in the chaos. For now, they were free. He looked back at the girl. Her eyes were half closed, and her small hands trembled. He reached into the medkit, cleaned her cuts, and wrapped her feet. Then he sat beside her, holding pressure on his own wound. "You're safe," he said. She looked at him, tired but calm. "You came for me," she whispered. He nodded slowly. "Your mom never stopped looking. And she made me promise." The shuttle flew quietly now. Stars glowing outside the windows. Behind them, the Syndicate ship burned from the inside. Systems damaged, records destroyed. It would take weeks for them to recover. By then, it would be too late. The human leaned back in the seat, his body aching, his vision fuzzy, but he smiled. Because he had done it, he had walked into death and came back with a life, not because he had to, but because someone asked for help. And he had said yes. The stars outside the shuttle moved slowly, like cold lights watching from far away. Inside, silence filled the cabin, except for the hum of engines and the soft breathing of a child. The human pilot sat quietly, one hand on the controls, the other pressed against his injured arm. He had wrapped it tightly, but the pain still came in waves. Sierra sat across from him, legs folded, photo clutched to her chest. She didn't cry now, but her eyes stayed wide, watching him like she didn't know what to expect. Every few minutes, she looked at the shuttle door as if someone might still come through it. He noticed, and after a while, he broke the silence. "You're safe," he said gently. "No one's chasing us anymore." She didn't answer right away. Then she asked in a small voice, "Am I going to be sold again?" The human froze. For a second, his throat tightened. He shook his head slowly. "No, never." Sierra looked down, her little fingers playing with a tear in her clothes. Then, "Are you my new owner?" Those words hit him harder than any bullet. He sat back, stunned. "No," he said softly. "I'm not your owner. You're not a thing. You're a little girl. You belong to no one." She blinked at him, unsure how to respond. "But they always said I had to belong to someone. They said I was made for others." He leaned forward, ignoring the pain in his side. "That's a lie," he said with a firm voice. "You're not a product. You're not made for anyone. You have a mother who loves you more than anything. She sent me to find you." Sierra stared at him. "Really?" He nodded. She walked across 3 systems just to find help. She almost died before. "She reached me." The little girl's lips trembled. Then, in a whisper, she said, "I thought she forgot me." He shook his head again. She never stopped looking. Tears welled up in her eyes. But she wiped them fast. "I didn't cry when they hurt me," she said. "But now? It's hard to stop." The human placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay to cry," he said. "That means you're still strong." The shuttle beeped softly. The nav system showed they were entering Earth's orbit. Sierra leaned toward the window, her face lighting up. "It's blue," she whispered. "I've never seen a blue planet before." "It's my home," the human said. "And for now, it's yours too." He guided the ship to a quiet landing spot outside the old farmland where he had lived. Trees waved in the wind, and sunlight spilled over the hills. It was peaceful, so different from the cold lab she had known. As the door opened, warm air touched her face. Sierra stepped outside slowly. Her feet touched real grass for the first time. She looked around like the world was a dream. Birds chirped, bugs buzzed, clouds floated by in the sky. "Is this really real?" she asked. "Yes," the human replied, smiling. "This is where your mother's waiting." She turned sharply, her eyes wide again. "She's here." He pointed toward the house, and just then, the door opened. The alien mother stood there, eyes full of shock and hope. Her hands rose to her mouth as she saw the small figure across the field, for one moment. Time stopped, then Sira screamed, "Mama!" She ran as fast as her small legs could take her. The alien woman ran too, arms open, tears falling before she even reached her. They crashed into each other in the middle of the field, mother and daughter together again. They held each other so tightly like they were afraid to let go, both of them shaking, both of them crying. The human stood back, watching quietly, his hands still hurt, his body still weak. But his heart felt something warm again, something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Sira looked back at him from her mother's arms. She smiled, truly smiled. "Thank you," she whispered. The alien mother stepped forward. She placed her hand over her heart and then reached to touch his arm. "You saved my child," she said. "There is no gift greater than that." He nodded, not needing more words, but deep inside, he knew he hadn't just rescued a child. He had destroyed a piece of evil. He had brought back light into 2 lives, and maybe, just maybe, the galaxy would hear this story and remember, humans may look ordinary, but when they care, they change everything. The sun was rising over the quiet valley. Sira was laughing for the first time in days. She chased a butterfly through the field while her mother watched from the porch. The human sat nearby, arms still healing, tools in his lap, fixing the damage to his old drone, but far above Earth. In the cold silence of space, something was coming. A dark ship moved like a shadow, quiet and fast. It carried no markings, no lights, no name, only purpose. Inside that ship were the Relic Syndicate's hunters, not bounty hunters, trackers. Trained for one thing only, recovery. They didn't care about right or wrong. They only followed orders, and this time, their order was simple: retrieve the hybrid girl, or destroy everything. Back on Earth, the human felt it before the sensors. Picked it up, a chill in his chest. He stood, walked to the console, and checked the sky monitor. A red dot blinked fast. Closing in, he didn't panic. He had expected this. The Syndicate didn't forget, and they never forgave. He walked outside, calm but firm. The alien mother saw his face change and stood quickly. "What's wrong?" she asked, voice tight. "They found us," he said. "Get inside, lock the doors." "Stay low." She froze, then grabbed Sira and ran. The little girl looked back at him with wide, scared eyes. "Will you be okay?" she asked. He gave her a small smile. "I've got work to do." Minutes later, the dark ship entered the sky. It hovered silently, casting a shadow over the valley. Then, 3 black pods dropped from underneath. They hit the ground hard. Hissing as the doors opened, out stepped 6 tall figures, wearing black armor and masks. No names, no words, just cold weapons and glowing eyes. The human stood at the edge of the field, waiting. He held no weapon in his hand, but his belt carried hidden tools. The lead hunter stepped forward and spoke in a robotic voice. "You took property that belongs to us." "She's not property," the human said calmly. "She's a child." The hunter ignored him. "You have 10 seconds to return the hybrid. After that, we take her by force." The human tilted his head slightly. "You think I'll just hand her over?" The hunter stepped closer. "You are one man," he said. "We are trained." The human reached into his coat and tapped his wrist device. Suddenly, loud clicking sounds echoed from the trees. Hidden metal traps popped out of the ground. Old war tech he had kept just in case. "You might be trained," the human said, "but you're not smart." One of the hunters took a step forward and click. The ground exploded beneath him. He flew back, armor sparking. The others raised their guns. The human rolled behind a rock and threw a flash grenade. Light burst through the air, blinding them for a moment. In that time, he moved, fast and quiet. Hitting them from the side, one by one, he used trick shock rods, gas pellets, EMP bursts. This wasn't war with rules. This was survival with everything he had left. But the hunters were strong. They regrouped fast, surrounding him. One shot hit his side, another grazed his leg. He fell back, breathing hard. They moved in, sure of victory. Then a small drone flew down from the roof, his old drone, now repaired. It dropped a final surprise, a pulse bomb. It exploded with a blast of energy, knocking out their armor systems. Lights died, guns stopped working. The humans stood again. Bleeding but steady, he picked up a hunter's weapon and aimed. "I told you," he said, voice hard, "she's not yours." The hunters tried to escape back to their ship, but he activated the signal disruptor. Their ship lost power. Crashing into the far edge of the valley, it was over. He dropped the gun and fell to his knees, tired and hurt. The mother ran out and helped him up. Sira followed, her eyes full of fear. "You didn't let them take me," she said, holding his hand. "Never," he whispered. "Not while I breathe." They helped him into the house, wrapped his wounds, and let him rest outside. Smoke rose from the wreckage. The syndicate would know they failed, and the galaxy would hear whispers of what happened on Earth. Whispers about the man who stood alone, the human who faced trained killers, and one not with power, but with purpose, because he wasn't fighting for glory. He was fighting for a child. The fire in the distance was finally gone. Only black smoke remained where the syndicate ship had fallen. The wreck still burned faintly. But the danger had passed. The hunters were gone, their threat broken, and inside the small Earth shelter, peace slowly returned. The human rested on a soft bed. Bandages wrapped tight across his side and leg. His body ached, but his mind stayed calm. He had survived, and more importantly, Sira was safe. The alien mother sat beside him, her hand gently on his arm. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time, they were not from fear. She looked at him and whispered, "I thought I lost everything, but you gave me my life back." Sira stood at the edge of the room, holding a cup of water. She walked carefully to him and placed it near his hand. "I made it warm," she said softly. He smiled. "Thank you," he whispered. "Perfect temperature for..." The first time in years, the house was filled with laughter, small, quiet, but real. It wasn't just a shelter now, it was a home. Word of what happened in the Ash Zone spread fast. In dark corners of the galaxy, criminals whispered about the human who broke into a syndicate ship. Some laughed, some doubted, but others, especially those who lost loved ones, believed it with all their hearts. And when the syndicate failed to retrieve the hybrid child, the black market networks paused, because someone, somewhere, had fought back. The alien mother, once ignored and cast aside, now spoke on interstellar channels. Her story spread through space like fire in dry grass. She told how her daughter was taken, how no one helped her, how she walked across systems, until she found one human, just one, who said yes. People listened. Some turned their heads in shame. Others raised their voices and began to ask questions. Where are the missing children? What is the syndicate really doing? Why did it take a human to act when entire planets stayed silent? In 1 week, 27 colonies filed complaints to the Galactic Court. In 1 month, patrol ships began searching hidden zones. In 2 months, a law passed banning all hybrid trafficking across neutral systems. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a start. And all of it began with a broken alien mother, a silent child, and a human who chose to care. Back on Earth, life began to settle. Sira had her own room now, with clean clothes and soft blankets. She painted drawings with bright color stars. Ships, her mother, and the man who saved her. The human helped fix the roof one day while she painted. She looked up and said, "You know what they called me in that lab?" He looked down. "What?" "Unit 13B, she replied. He shook his head. "That's not your name," he said. She smiled. I know. I like when you call me Sira. Her voice was stronger now, her eyes brighter, and sometimes she even forgot to check the door because she was no longer afraid. One evening, as stars lit the sky, the alien mother stood beside the human under the quiet moonlight. She looked up at the stars, then at him. I never believed in miracles, she said. But now I believe in something else, human kindness. He chuckled softly. Not all humans are like me, he said. She smiled, but I only needed one. They stood in silence, listening to Sira laugh as she played with a small glowing insect. The world was still broken, the stars still dangerous. But something had changed, somewhere. Out there, other mothers would cry for their children, but now they had a story of a man who didn't turn away. A story of a child rescued not by armies, but by care, and across systems. People whispered the tale with new names. The human who faced the syndicate. The girl who wasn't a product, the mother who walked through the stars but for them. It was simply home. One small family, made stronger through pain, bound by loss, but healed by love. And the human, still silent, still humble, became something more than a hero. He became a symbol, not of war, but of choice. The choice to help. The choice to care. The choice to protect, even when no one else would. Even when it meant facing death alone. Because that's what made him human.